Stop. Do not answer your phone. Not until you understand what I'm about to explain. In 2026, a single word, yes, spoken on a phone call can legally trigger financial damage that takes years to reverse. Not because you were hacked, not because you gave away a password, but because modern fraud systems are now built to use your own voice as authorization. This is not speculation. This is not an online rumor. This is the operating reality of financial crime in America right now. We are no longer dealing with amateur scammers or random robocalls. Today's fraud operations are professional, coordinated, and powered by artificial intelligence. They use voice cloning, automated call recording, and legal gray area consent rules to turn an ordinary phone conversation into evidence against you. I want you to understand the mechanics clearly, because this is where people lose control without realizing it. When you answer an unexpected call and verbally confirm your identity by saying yes, correct, or that's right, that audio can be captured, isolated, and reused. In many financial and service systems, recorded verbal consent alone is enough to initiate account changes, service enrollments, or payment authorizations. You may hang up thinking nothing happened, while the damage has already begun. The numbers confirm this shift. Americans lost over $12.5 billion in fraud in 2024. By 2025, U.S. seniors alone reported $4.9 billion in losses, with phone-based impersonation scams leading the increase. Investigators now confirm that many of these cases begin with a single, recorded confirmation word. This is why answering the phone has become dangerous, not because you were careless, but because the rules have changed. Your savings, your retirement accounts, your independence and dignity, all can be put at risk in seconds without a password ever being stolen. If protecting yourself, your spouse, and your family matters, like this briefing and subscribe to Jack Secure so we can reach more Americans before criminals reach them first. Now let me show you why this works and why the old safety rules no longer protect you.
Here is the logic they use. They call with partial information already in hand: your name, your city, sometimes the last 4 digits of an account. Then they ask a simple confirming question. Is this Robert? Can you hear me clearly? Do you want us to stop this transaction? The moment you respond with yes, that audio becomes usable material. It can be digitally isolated, cleaned, and inserted into pre-built authorization scripts that sound legitimate to automated systems and even human reviewers. The danger here is not just fraud, it is plausible consent. When a dispute occurs, institutions may hear a recording of your own voice agreeing to an action. At that point, investigations slow down. Reversals become difficult. The burden of proof often shifts toward you, the victim, to prove you did not authorize the transaction. The consequence is serious: delayed access to funds, prolonged stress, and in some cases, permanent financial loss. This is why a single word, spoken casually, has become so powerful in 2026. We need to address a critical reality of 2026, because this is where many Americans are still unprepared. Your voice is no longer private. Advances in artificial intelligence have made voice replication fast, inexpensive, and highly accurate. Criminal networks no longer need minutes or hours of audio. In many documented cases, as little as 10 to 15 seconds of clean voice data is enough to generate a usable clone. That audio is often collected without suspicion during routine phone calls, voicemail greetings, customer service interactions, or short videos shared online. Once captured, your voice can be digitized, modeled, and reused on demand. I want you to understand what that enables. A cloned voice can be used to confirm financial transactions, especially when systems rely on voice recognition or recorded authorization. It can be used to bypass human verification because customer service agents are trained to trust familiar-sounding voices that correctly answer basic questions. And perhaps most damaging, it can be used to convince family members that a call is legitimate, creating emotional urgency and trust before anyone has time to question it.
This is why we now say, very clearly, hearing is no longer believing. For decades, voice was considered proof of identity. In 2026, that assumption is no longer safe. Criminals understand this psychological shortcut and exploit it deliberately. They know that people are more likely to comply when they recognize a voice, even if the request itself feels unusual. The consequence of underestimating this technology is severe. Your own voice can be used to authorize actions you never approved, confirm transactions you never requested, and reassure loved ones during a fraudulent call. When investigators later review recordings, they may hear what sounds like you agreeing to the action. This creates confusion, delays, and in some cases, irreversible financial loss. This is not science fiction. This is the operating environment we are living in now. Understanding that reality is the first step toward protecting yourself, your family, and the legacy you have worked your entire life to build. Let's analyze how criminals get you to say yes, because the method is intentional and highly refined. They rarely ask directly. In fact, asking directly would raise suspicion. Instead, they adopt what we call the phantom official role, a calm, authoritative presence designed to feel legitimate, routine, and safe. These callers present themselves as bank fraud investigators, Medicare or Social Security officials, utility, insurance, or retirement plan administrators. They speak clearly. They avoid pressure at first. They use professional language and often reference internal procedures or case numbers. This is not accidental. It is meant to lower your defenses and position them as a helper rather than a threat. I want you to understand the structure of the conversation. The first questions are intentionally simple. Is this Mr. Johnson? Can you hear me clearly? Are you currently at home? These are not small talk. Each question is designed to capture clean, isolated confirmation audio, especially the word yes. That confirmation is recorded, cataloged, and stored for later use. Once that confirmation is secured, the conversation escalates. You may be told there is suspicious activity, an account irregularity, or a compliance issue that must be addressed. The phantom official frames the situation as time-sensitive but manageable, creating urgency without panic. This keeps you engaged and cooperative. Here is the key danger. Trust is being engineered, not earned. The scam succeeds because the caller sounds informed, respectful, and aligned with your interests. They are not stealing, they are persuading. And when persuasion works, victims often authorize actions themselves, unknowingly assisting in their own financial harm. The consequences of engaging with a phantom official go beyond money. Many victims experience a deep sense of betrayal, not just by the criminal, but by the system they believed would protect them. They replay the conversation, questioning their judgment, and feeling ashamed for having cooperated. This emotional impact matters. It often leads to hesitation in managing finances, fear of answering legitimate calls, and reluctance to seek help. Understanding this tactic is critical. Once you recognize how trust is manipulated, you regain control, and criminals lose their most powerful weapon. In 2026, benefit systems across the United States are changing rapidly, and criminals are exploiting that transition with precision. Medicare, supplemental insurance providers, and retirement-linked health plans are undergoing updates tied to digital verification, provider networks, and coverage coordination. These changes create complexity, and complexity creates opportunity for fraud. Criminals target confusion around Medicare updates and revalidations, supplemental and advantage plan reviews, and coverage verification and eligibility checks. They initiate contact by phone, presenting the call as routine and administrative. There's no dramatic language, no threats, and no obvious red flags at the beginning. The goal is to make the interaction feel ordinary. You may be told that a confirmation is required to prevent interruption of benefits, finalize a system update, ensure continued coverage. Once you verbally confirm, often with a simple yes or acknowledgement, criminals can act. Here is what happens next. That recorded confirmation may be used to redirect benefits, changing where claims are sent or who is authorized to manage the account. In other cases, criminals file false medical claims using your identity, creating records of services you never received. Some victims are even locked into fraudulent services or plans that generate ongoing charges and are difficult to cancel. The damage does not stop at money. False claims can contaminate your medical records. Benefit redirection can delay legitimate care. Correcting these issues often requires months of phone calls, affidavits, and written disputes. During that time, coverage may be limited or suspended. For retirees, this creates an unacceptable burden. The stress of navigating bureaucracy, the fear of losing healthcare access, and the frustration of correcting someone else's crime take a real toll. Many victims describe feeling overwhelmed, anxious, and hesitant to engage with benefit providers at all. This is why these scams are so dangerous. They don't just steal money, they disrupt healthcare, erode confidence, and consume time that should be spent living, not fighting systems. Understanding that no legitimate Medicare or insurance provider requires verbal confirmation on an unsolicited call is a critical line of defense in 2026. I want to be very clear about this because misunderstanding it causes unnecessary shame. These scams work because you are responsible, not because you are careless, uninformed, or naive. Criminal organizations deliberately target individuals who have spent their lives managing obligations, solving problems, and protecting their families. They look for people who want to resolve issues quickly and correctly, do not want to burden their spouse or children, believe cooperation with authority leads to safety.
Scammers study behavioral data the same way financial institutions do. They know that responsible adults are more likely to answer calls, listen carefully, and take action when something sounds important. They also know that this age group was raised to respect institutions and follow proper procedures. Your sense of duty is the entry point. When a caller presents a problem and offers a solution, many victims feel compelled to handle it themselves. They believe staying calm, cooperative, and discreet is the mature response. Criminals rely on that instinct to isolate you and prevent outside verification. I want you to understand the psychological trap. The scam does not feel like a threat. It feels like a task, something that needs to be addressed efficiently. By the time suspicion arises, decisions may already have been made, confirmations given, or authorizations recorded. The consequence is not just financial loss. Many victims report a loss of confidence in their own judgment. They begin to second-guess legitimate calls, avoid managing accounts, or hand control to others out of fear. Some stop answering the phone altogether, cutting themselves off from real support and services. This emotional impact matters. It affects independence, dignity, and the ability to make clear financial decisions going forward. It can also create tension within families when victims feel embarrassed or reluctant to share what happened. I want our community to hear this clearly. Being targeted does not mean you failed. It means criminals recognized your responsibility and exploited it. Understanding that truth is essential, not just for protection, but for restoring confidence and control. Many Americans are still operating under safety rules that worked 10 or 15 years ago. Those rules were appropriate for an earlier threat environment, but in 2026, they are no longer sufficient. You may believe, I didn't give my password, so I'm safe. I didn't click a link. It sounded official, so it must be legitimate. In today's fraud landscape, none of those assumptions provide real protection. Modern scams do not require passwords or links. They rely on verbal engagement, recorded consent, and psychological pressure. Criminals are no longer trying to break into your devices. They are trying to influence your decisions in real time. I want you to understand this shift clearly. Fraud in 2026 attacks judgment under pressure. Callers are trained to sound calm, informed, and helpful. They avoid aggressive language. They position themselves as problem solvers. This creates a false sense of safety that keeps people engaged. Politeness becomes a liability. Many victims stay on the line because they do not want to be rude, hang up on a professional-sounding caller, or ignore what might be a legitimate issue. Criminals depend on that courtesy. Every additional second of conversation gives them more information, more recorded audio, and more opportunities to guide the interaction. Silence is not safety either. Simply listening without responding can still allow callers to capture background cues, confirm presence, or steer the conversation toward a response. Engagement, any engagement, is the opening they need. The most dangerous belief is that you can handle it carefully. In reality, once a call is inbound and unsolicited, the safest action is disengagement, not evaluation. This represents a fundamental change in how we must think about phone security. The goal is no longer to identify the scam during the call. The goal is to avoid participating in the call at all. Updating these habits is essential to protecting your finances, your independence, and your peace of mind in 2026 and beyond. Let me leave you with a clear protection protocol, one you can use immediately and share with your family. This is not about memorizing dozens of rules. It is about changing how you respond to unexpected calls, in a world where voices, numbers, and authority can be convincingly faked.
Briefing point 1. Control your words. Never say yes, correct, or that's right on inbound calls. These words are no longer harmless. If a caller asks for confirmation, the safest response is to end the call. Hanging up is not rude, it is responsible. Verification should always happen on your terms, using numbers you trust. Briefing point 2. Treat every unexpected call as unverified. No matter how professional the voice sounds, no matter how much information the caller claims to have, assume the call is unverified until you independently confirm it. Legitimate institutions understand this. They expect caution. Criminals rely on trust without verification. Briefing point 3. Slow the process down. Fraud depends on urgency. Real organizations do not. Any demand for immediate action, secrecy, or rapid confirmation is a warning sign. Slowing down gives you back control and breaks the psychological pressure scammers depend on. You worked too hard for too many years to lose your future to a recorded word or a manipulated conversation. Protecting yourself is not about fear, it is about awareness, boundaries, and confidence. If this briefing helped you, subscribe to Jack Secure. This channel exists for one reason: to protect Americans through clear, honest education that respects your experience and your independence. Stay alert, stay informed, stay secure.